Lori, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you do and how you call yourself?
Great. Well, thanks for the invitation, Liz. So I am a financial advisor, so a wealth manager, investment manager, but I also have a specialty in divorce financial planning. I am one of the folks around the country that's called a CDFA, which stands for Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. And it just means that we have specialized training and experience in the financial and tax consequences of divorce.
Wow, incredible. I've met plenty of financial advisors. I rarely meet someone who specializes in this area. Do you primarily work with one sex versus the other, or do you yes, I see you nodding. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm going to put on my, I'm going to actually share my slideshow with you and see if we can have our cameras on as well. Should have opened this before, but just give me a second. Okay.
There you go. Your screen
You
is.
can see it?
Yes, I do. And you might just
okay.
you might want to hit slideshow. There you go.
There we go. Okay, everyone. All right, so here we go. So a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, we can really work in a variety of ways. So often I'm pulled in when folks are working with a divorce mediator, and the mediator's a neutral party, and they also want somebody as a neutral to go in depth in the finances and figure out really how to split things equally. Mm-hmm. But what I really love doing is being a financial advocate for one party, and it's usually the wife. Mm-hmm. Because especially if you're in mediation, nobody's giving you legal or financial advice. And even if you're working with a lawyer, there are a lot of things that you can do with the financial expert at a much lower cost than the hourly rate of a lawyer. Mm-hmm. To do some of the analysis for your settlement, and we'll get into that in the deck.
Sure. Excellent. Good deal. Well, tell me a little bit more. So as somebody is, let's say you probably are meeting with people after their divorce has already happened, I would assume, or in preparation of divorce. So I'm sure you have countless amount of stories of women that have been caught off guard by what's happened, or they've been left with a little less than they think they need to get started again, or maybe they don't have a skill set because they've been a stay-at-home mom for many, many years, and now they are facing a new position in life and probably, frankly, a little scared about what that means. So I would love to learn how you come alongside of them and help them through that process.
Yeah, excellent framing of the issue. I mean, I titled this presentation, "It Could Happen," because especially during the virus situation right now where folks are quarantined, if the marriage hasn't been very good right now, it gets amplified. Sure. And I've had many women reach out to me very recently saying, look, the kids are in college, or they're out of the house, or they're going to be done with high school, and I just can't see myself retiring with this person. Sure. Or I've had situations where I've had women call me saying that their husbands have told them when the courts are open, I'm filing for divorce. So they are sitting here with nothing to do, being scared. Sure. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I do, as you mentioned, I do financial consulting with people before divorce. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I've met with many women who've decided, Laurie, after meeting with you, I think I'm really going to work on my marriage, which is great.
Yes. Absolutely.
And then obviously most of the work I do is during the divorce. These divorces can go on for months, even years. There's a lot of analysis to be done, a lot of proposals going back and forth. And then after divorce, as you mentioned, you have a marital settlement agreement. You may be receiving or paying child or spousal support. You now have two households instead of one, and you can imagine the budget is really tightened.
Yes.
And decisions have to be made.
Sure. Okay, good.
So, I mean, and you know, you being a real estate expert, this is not new to you.
I'm sure the house always becomes an issue. Not only is it a place of safety for many women, but it is a financial asset that obviously is shared. I know situations where, you know, one party had the dollars to pay for the house, the other party lived in the house, and now, you know, there's a split. And how do you treat the house that has been the safe shelter for one party and all of the children, and allow the other party to go on living and find the financial means to find a second residence? So it's quite challenging.
That's the number one question I get. The first question I get, again, because most of the work I do is with women, not exclusively, but really 75% of my work is as an advocate to a woman going through divorce. Number one question, can I afford to keep the house?
Right.
And then will I have to people are shocked, Liz, and you're not shocked, but people are shocked. What? I have to refinance the mortgage in my own name? What are you talking about? We'll just co-own the house, or husband will stay on paying the mortgage. You know, those are issues we have. So I work with the women to see what can we do. First of all, is it a good idea to keep the house? Are you going to have to give up retirement assets to keep the house?
Right.
Second of all, if you really want to keep the house, what can we do to put you in a position to refinance the mortgage? Can we figure out how much child and or spousal support you're going to need? Or if you're the payor, how, you know, that we can reduce it so that you show income and your debt to, you know, your debt ratio makes you such that you can qualify.
Yeah. Now, I tell you, this brings up a really good question in COVID times, and I'm sure that I'm not going to spend much time on this because you've got the floor here. But recently, I was told by a few of my lenders, because refinance has been very big, you can imagine, with the interest rate dropping to 3%,
Yeah.
that while people are applying for forbearance during COVID, there is obviously a small protection of so many months. But the whole reason for that was to be able to catch up their mortgage after those 3 months. Some large lenders are tacking it to the end, but it is still outstanding balances that have now changed, even when this is all over, that they owe money that they haven't repaid. And I was told that if until they actually catch up the forbearance amount, plus 12 months, they will not be able to refinance their house because it is
Wow.
shown as a late payment.
Wow. So that'd be great for you to do a coffee connection on that very issue, because that is new news, and that's really going to make this difficult.
Absolutely, especially in a divorce scenario.
Wow. Thank you for raising that. That's great.
Sure.
So one issue in California in particular, and I work, I'm a financial advisor. I have clients all over the country, but for the divorce work, I do specialize in California, anywhere in California, because we have laws that are different.
Right.
You know, every state has different family law statutes. And the one big issue I get is, look, we have people that are marrying later in life, second marriages. Somebody might have owned that house before marriage. And there are complicated calculations that need to be done to figure out, one, separate property reimbursement, if the community paid down the mortgage. And so one of the terms people will face is something called a Moore-Marsden analysis. It's based on 2 court cases, but what we're trying to do is, people think mistakenly in the state of California that if I own the house before, let's say it's a woman owns the house, man moves in, they get married, she thinks she can walk away with that house, that's her separate property. But if the community together was making mortgage payments, even if she thinks she was making the mortgage payments, her husband may have an equity interest.
Wow. Wow. Now the equity interest, just curiously, because I do know women in those scenarios, the equity interest, would that be if she put a large down payment and then they married and then they lived cohabitated, is he in receipt? Will he receive any of that down payment that she did before marriage?
Yeah, so there's two situations. There's either a reimbursement, that's a dollar for dollar reimbursement. So there may be a case where the house was jointly titled and one spouse put 80,000 down. Okay, well, that spouse is entitled to reimbursement, and then the rest of the equity split. The more complicated issue is when one spouse bought the home before marriage, it now becomes the marital home. As together as a community, her mortgage or his mortgage was being paid down. So there's a complicated, and then what if improvements were made? So the other spouse is entitled to reimbursement for some of the mortgage payments if there was principal paid down, and what's called a pro tanto share of the appreciation of the home.
Wow.
And it's very complicated, and every situation's different.
Wow.
But we won't dwell too much on that. We have a lot to cover, but that's just for folks to know who's going to be watching this, that if you bought the home before marriage, it's not easy peasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. Okay, great.
Okay. Other question, this is one thing I want to warn people. Other question I get, can we each keep our own retirement accounts? If you hear this, you run for the hills. If your spouse says, can we each keep our own retirement accounts? Because you know what? The spouse who normally says that is usually the one with the pension. The other one has the 401k, and the pensions are much more valuable than people realize. And when you look at a statement, the amount of the pension is not what you paid in. If you're a teacher, you can see the 8% you put in every month of your salary in the accrual. That's not what it's worth in terms of paying out for 30 years or 20 years. So whenever I'm in a neutral, and so let's just keep our own retirement accounts, please work with a CDFA to actually value those before you make that trade. Now, if you decide, and both parties are aware, you know what, his is worth $200,000 than mine, and we think it's fair that he keeps his, I keep mine, fine, but I want you to be aware of what you're really exchanging.
Got it. Good point. Yeah.
Another issue. People, child support's only until that kid, 18 or still in high school. Who's paying for college? Too many arguments about that. That really should be negotiated in the marital settlement agreement.
Absolutely.
People are supporting adult children, right? They come home for the summer. They come home for the break. Who's feeding them?
And then I noticed down here that you talk about credit card debt. That's huge. How does that come up?
Huge. Oh, well, people are irritated if one spouse is a spendthrift. We also have stories of people making huge purchases when the marriage is going south, people buying cars, people getting plastic surgery, you name it. And I mean,
well, how does that get split? I mean, does that?
Unfortunately, marital debt, that's the problem here. In most cases, you may have to pay half of the debt. There are certain situations you can negotiate, okay? Yeah, so and there are some gray areas. There are some gray areas, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the big issue, lots of people, I find this often, you can tell I'm very passionate about this subject, Liz. When I find when a spouse is not financially educated about the marital finances and the impact of divorce, they often fall to the conclusion that my spouse is hiding money and I need to hire a forensic accountant.
Amazing. So that person would dig in as deep as they need to and find if there are any hidden accounts.
Right. And it's usually, I can do this kind of work that my CDFAs, again, think about the tool for the task, as my colleague likes to say. Do you really need to hire the forensic accountant and spend $20,000 on this project? Or can this be done a little less expensively? Like, so for instance, people who run their own businesses, we all know people take deductions because they want to pay less taxes. Well, there are certain deductions that we can add back in for purposes of calculating income available for child and spousal support. I can usually look at tax returns, look at all the assets and debts. I mean, you have to disclose everything. I have a pretty good sense of did this person disclose everything? Or do I think, you know what, something's fishy? And if I can at least on an overall level say something's fishy, then we can send off a specific project for a forensic accountant to dig deeper, or maybe your lawyer subpoenas documents.
So in a case of, let's say a female, in this case, because you're passionate about working with them, let's say they know they're getting ready to be divorced. They sense that these questions haven't been dealt with and their finances are questionable. They come alongside of you. They're not only hiring an attorney to represent them, but they're also hiring you to help put their affairs in order financially and answer these questions. And then through this information, you're both going back to the attorney or potentially a forensic accountant in this case, and building a stronger backbone for the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, we want to get, I mean, when you get a divorce in California, both spouses are required to disclose under penalty of perjury all assets, all debts, not just marital, but separate as well. So if you have a separate inheritance, you need to disclose that. Doesn't mean you have to share it with your soon-to-be ex. And then income and expenses. And a little secret I'll tell you for the especially the women who are not involved, stay-at-home moms that may not be involved much with the finances. They may pay bills and so forth, but the husband may run a business.
Right.
And I don't want to be gender, I'm trying to be gender neutral here. I'm just saying in my experience, the cases I see, basically you can request, if you don't have access to the tax returns, you can for free request the past 3 years of transcripts from the IRS. They will email them to you quickly. And I can see a lot, just looking at those transcripts is something fishy.
Wow, that could be done, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see if things are making sense. So the big question though, everyone wants to know, let's cut to the case. Cut to the chase. I bolded it. Will I have enough money to live on? If I get divorced, Laurie, am I going to live in a shoebox? Am I going to live like a pauper? Is my life going to be destroyed? That's the question everybody wants to know. And your lawyer can't answer that for you necessarily.
No, you can't. And I think the thing about females, and I know I'm of that belief, is that I see, and I've heard it compared many times, that men see money as a flow of assets and women see money as a pool of assets. And it's interesting. We're worried if we're close to the top or if we're really diminishing. And a gentleman usually they're just like, I'll just make more. I'll just make more. And very different thinking. And I think that is because of our need for protection and security that is just inherent. And of course, with taking on children, our protection need for them. I mean, all of that comes together and plays a role.
Absolutely. The security, feeling secure. People want to feel financially secure. Absolutely. How much time do we have left? Because I've got a few more.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay, let's keep plugging. Okay. So, and I don't know if everyone can see the slide or if the video, my camera here, I'll move that. Okay, so here are, I won't go through all of these, just hit the highlights, but these are the financial components of a California divorce. Here you go, financial components. So I'm not sure where to put my little screen here, but okay, so basically we talked about this. So here are the big ones. We got to look at the house. Are you going to sell the house? Are you going to buy out the spouse? Are you going to co-own? What are you going to do? Health insurance, we have to look about, health insurance is very expensive. That's going to be a new budget item, okay? And then dividing retirement accounts. There's other investments. There might be stocks and bonds. Your spouse or yourself may get restricted stock units, stock options through work. These are assets, okay? You may own real estate. You may own a business. The debt. Credit cards, car loans, solar loans. Do you owe the debt? Do you owe taxes to the IRS Franchise Tax Board? So all this stuff gets laid out, and then we work together to figure out how do we divide this fairly, right? Because $1 in equity in the house is not worth $1 in retirement, because the retirement, you have to pay taxes on most retirement accounts when you withdraw, okay? We got to figure all this out. Stocks, bonds, funds. you might have bought Amazon 10 years ago. And if you sell that Amazon stock, you may owe a lot of capital gains tax, okay?
Right.
So this is stuff. Now on this side, does that, when I move my camera, do you see, I don't know what you see, but we'll see.
I see the full slide.
Okay, so now on this side, the amount in terms of support, the child support factors, if you have minor children, here are the main factors. We look at the income of each spouse, the timeshare of the children, 50-50 or something different. And then there's deductions, the cost of health insurance. Is one spouse a teacher where they have to make mandatory contributions to their pension? And then there's deductions, mortgage interest, and property tax. So this is pretty straightforward, except for when I get involved again, what if people are self-employed? What if they're a real estate agent with variable income? You're not getting the same amount every month, okay?
Right.
We tackle that. Now let's talk about spousal support factors, because this is extremely gray. People hate this. There's no definite answer. You're going to look at these child support factors, whether or not you have children or not. This is the same deductions to look at, but oops. Now, what's the length of the marriage? What was the lifestyle of the marriage? What about, is the supported party have ability to work? You raised that issue, Liz, in the beginning. What if you've been a stay-at-home parent out of the workforce? What is the age of each party? I have a lot of divorces that are gray divorce, where the couples are in their late 50s, early 60s. If somebody's going to retire at 65, you can't be getting, if you're expecting to get spousal support because you're married to a doctor and that doctor retires, that doctor's not making that same income.
Right.
So people sometimes think, I've been married for 30 years, I'm going to get spousal support for life. I don't see that a lot.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the one issue, and then you also want to look at income generating assets. So let's just say you have an inheritance or a trust account, even though you may not have to split that with your spouse. I have a case right now where the wife makes $40,000 a year in dividends from her separate property. Well, that will probably be counted as part of the income to support her.
Wow.
And then there's Family Code Section 4320, which is the statute that tells you all the factors that a court can take into consideration.
Cool. Very nice.
Then we can also do a buyout of spousal support instead of some, for all those things. So those are some issues. So let me just tell you a little bit about, and then we'll, we'll wrap up. And I know you have a question. So I have an It Could Happen package. This is the financial consulting before divorce. And I really try to make this affordable and a flat rate so people know what to expect, because, when you go to a lawyer, they want a retainer and it can be expensive.
Right.
And we basically, even if you don't have tremendous visibility into your financial situation, I help you gather what you can and we fill in some holes. And then I give you some recommendations of next steps, mediators, attorneys, and maybe you want to go to just continue working on your marriage, and that's great. So then financial consulting during divorce, whether on the left I have if you're represented by an attorney, or on the right if you're in mediation. As I mentioned before, when you're working with an attorney, if there's any work myself or a fellow CDFA can do, that's probably going to be 30 to 50% lower per hour than the attorney. We can really help you understand what's a fair settlement, okay? And the lawyer's going to help you with what's fair as well. What I'm going to do is help make sure that this settlement is going to ensure that you don't run out of money in 10 or 20 years. All right, so it's not just what's fair, it's what is going to work for you in the future and what you need to do to make sure that you will be financially secure. That's huge. And then when you're working with a mediator, as more and more people are doing, I really help you between mediation sessions, strategize. In mediation, you've got proposals going back and forth. And it's really important that in mediation, you don't have an attorney normally with you at the table. You need to learn how to advocate for what you need, what you're entitled to, what's fair, and what you want.
Sure. Makes sense.
And then financial planning after divorce. Usually when I work with people, I want to look at their marital settlement agreement. Most people don't want to look at it after they've signed it, but we really need to know what's in there. You want to make sure that, retirement accounts, if it's a 401k or a pension, you need a qualified domestic relations order to divide it. The money may not come for months or a year after the divorce. We want to make sure that's done. We want to create a new budget, and we want to work with your CPA. And you may have never had your own CPA or enrolled agent.
Right.
And then the number one thing is, if you have a settlement, whether it's cash, investments, or a retirement account, you really want to work with me or another trusted financial advisor to invest the money to either generate income or grow it, or both, so you don't run out of money.
I was chatting with a friend, someone who referred me to you, and trust her opinion. She was sharing some of the amazing growth you yourself has found through the past. And I was very impressed with your beginning and your present. And I thought there was personal experience that helped fuel how you help other women.
Yes, thank you. It's really I wrote a book called Every Woman Should Know Her Options. And my mother was married 3 times, and she died suddenly at 67, unexpected, very shocked, very young. But I have no doubt that she would have run out of money. I mean, she would have run out of money. Divorce takes a toll, and you really, I wish, and I wasn't in this role when she died. I was in another career, and I really wish, had I known now, I really could have helped her. I really feel that strongly. And my mom almost ran out of money, and I don't want any woman to run out of money.
Truly, truly. This is powerful. And really and truly, I think when we're going through divorce, we're caught up in emotions. We're not even sure if our emotions are the right feelings of the day. Just so much going on. And we're getting advice from so many different avenues. Sometimes you're not sure how to take that. This is incredible, because in the areas where we feel the least qualified, you come alongside of these women and give them hope, give them clarity. And I know for myself, when I understand where I am, especially financially, there's power in that. There's, okay, here's where we are, here's where we want to go. Now, how do we get there? But if
Absolutely.
you're not understanding, how much is going out for your monthly bills, how much is left in the bank, where the accounts are, there's nothing but panic when something like a divorce comes along. This is strength, confidence, the ability to move forward, the ability to take care of your own family and your needs. And I think every woman should be prepared for that. I mean, we like to lean on our spouse, but when it's not possible, when it's more misery than it is pleasure, this gives a great option for women to restart, refuel, and move forward.
Absolutely. You can't make informed decisions unless you are informed, and you become paralyzed if you don't have the information. And unfortunately, in divorce, sometimes information is not delivered in a way that you can understand or digest. Everyone learns differently, everyone communicates differently. And I'll tell you, I've worked on probably over 150 divorce cases now. And what is so exciting to me is the opportunity to be a teacher and learn how to deliver the information that the person I'm working with values, digests, uses it, and feels empowered.
Absolutely. That's great. Well, the nature of these coffee connections will be that they are available to all of your audience, all of my audience. And I'm sure there's going to be women who need to answer some questions or have some questions answered. And I see here, Lori at theoptionslady.com. Is that the best way to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Or my website, theoptionslady.com, either one.
Wonderful. Lori, this has been very informative. I love it. Thank you so much for being part of this today. And we look forward to sharing this with so many, especially now. It's probably needed more than ever.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity and glad to be of service to everybody. And thank you, Liz.
Thank you. Thank